This movie gives an overview of DDM working with SolidWorks. In this movie we'll look at saving a part record, creating an assembly and a drawing, and releasing that information and then up-issuing the assembly. So to begin with, I have a new component that I've created, and I'm just going to finish off the design by adding some chamfers. And now I'm ready to save my part back to DDM. So we have a PDM integrator menu that gives us all of the commands that we need to interact between SolidWorks and DDM, and we're going to simply save this part back to DDM. So initially the part is saved to our local drive, and then we are prompted to save the part back to DDM through this properties window. First thing I'm going to do is to assign a part number to this model that I've created and give it a description. And this is a wrist pin. So my model is now created and stored to DDM. So if I close the model and search and open back to DDM, if I look at my recent items, then at the top of the list is the wrist pin that I've just created, and we have a preview of the pin down in our properties panel. So I'm now going to create an assembly, and what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to search for the piston head that I'm going to use as the starting point for this assembly, and this is a released item, and we're going to load it into SolidWorks, and then we're going to use this as the basis for the assembly that we're creating. So now I've got the piston head loaded. What I want to do is to go back to DDM and load the wrist pin from my recent items into the assembly that I'm creating. So we can now position the wrist pin in the assembly. And once we've completed assembling the item, we can again save this back to DDM. So here you see I've put the frequently used PDM integrator save icons onto my quick access toolbar so that I can now save the assembly back to DDM. Same process, the properties dialog opens, we assign a number, and this is my piston head assembly. And we'll save that back to DDM, and we get confirmation that the assembly has been saved. So let's move on from here and let's create a drawing from the assembly. And I'm going to use one of a template that I've got set up, and we'll just bring in some drawing views. And once we've created that, we can save the drawing back to DDM. So again, the properties window opens. This time though, we're just going to use the name taken from the assembly, and you'll see that the description has transferred across as well. So we'll save this, and our drawing is now created and saved. So we can close down the drawing and the models. We'll return to DDM, and here we see at the top of the list the assembly drawing that we've created. And down in the bottom we have a preview of the drawing. If we double click on that, it will open the PDF that's automatically created every time we save the drawing. You'll see the drawing title block is automatically populated with attributes from DDM. So it has the description, it has the part number, the issue or revision, and you'll see it's also watermarked to indicate that this is not a release drawing. So we're alerted to the fact that we're looking at a drawing that's not yet been released. So let's move on with this and let's release the assembly that we've now created. So I'm going to take the top level assembly drawing and open the release manager. If I select expand all, I can see the full structure of the assembly and any component drawings, so that I can be sure to release the whole assembly. So these items in red are already released, and so I can't change those. What I'm going to do is set the new items to released, and just to add some notes. Ready for manufacture. Okay. and you'll see our assembly is now released. So we're going to move on from here and take a look at making a change to this assembly and then creating a new issue or revision. So I'm going to load the assembly itself into SolidWorks, and then from the assembly I'm going to open the wrist pin that we created. Now this is a released item in DDM. If we look at the properties of this, we'll see that it's released, and so we can't make changes to it. If we look at the links tab, we can see where this item is used, so we know which assemblies that this item is used on, which is really useful information. So I know I can't overwrite the released model, but what I'm going to do is make a change and then save this back to DDM as a new model. So what we'll do is we'll put a center bore through this pin. We'll push it right through the part, through all. And now you see, if we try and save this, we get a message that we're not able to modify this. So what we're going to do is use the save as function to create a new version of this wrist pin in the database. So first of all, we assign a new number, so it's moved from 255 to 257, and we'll change the description as well. So this is the wrist pin with the center bore. We'll save that, and what we'll do is return to the assembly. So you can see we've got the wrist pin with the hole in now. And what we're going to do is use a really useful function to load the related drawing. So this is just going to pull the related drawing from DDM into SolidWorks for us, so that we're now at the top level of this assembly and ready to create a new issue. So we'll say save new issue, and the issue revision manager opens that allows us to select both of these items and push them to the next issue. And we're going to add a change reason as well. So we're going to give a number. So this is my change number, and we're going to give a description. Wrist pin modified, and we'll put center bore added to wrist pin. So once we've pushed these items to the next issue and given a change reason, we can click on OK to up issue these items. So once this is completed, we're left with the new issue in session, and we can confirm that by looking at the drawing title block. Here you can see we've got revision 2. In addition, the revision history has been updated on the drawing title block, so that we can see that the wrist pin was modified, who made the change, when it was made, and the associated engineering change order number. If we again look at the properties of this item and links, we can see that this is issue 2, and it's using 257, the hollow wrist pin, instead of the solid wrist pin. So from here we can see that our new issue of the piston head assembly is now at a work in progress state, but you'll see that the original issue is now under review. As soon as we make a new issue, we're warning people that the originally released issue, issue 1, is now under review, letting people know that there are changes taking place to these components and assemblies. So now we're going to take a look at the bill of materials editor in DDM. So I'm going to take this assembly that we've been working on, and if I right click on it, you'll see that we can open the bill of materials editor. And this shows items scanned from the SolidWorks bill of materials that we've created. So we've got the piston head and the wrist pin, and we also scan the quantity of items in the assembly. Now sometimes we may want to add items that we don't model in the CAD environment, such as lubricants or adhesives. And in this case we want to add a non-modelled part into this bill of materials. So I'm going to return back to DDM, and I'm going to search using my category browser for lubricants that I've already got stored into DDM. And here's the lubricant that I want to use. So what I'm going to do is to drag this item from DDM and jump back to my bill of materials editor and add in the lubricant that I'm using. You'll see here that we can assign a quantity. So we might want to say that we're using 15 milliliters, and we can also assign some notes. So we can say apply to wrist pin. So once I've completed that, I can apply and store those changes and click on OK. So my bill of materials is updated. So now I've completed my work. If I go back to my recent items, what we're going to do is complete this by releasing the assembly that we've been working on. So this is currently work in progress. We're going to again open the release manager, and we're going to expand all, select the items in the assembly, and we're going to release them. And so our assembly is now released. And you'll see the original issue of the assembly has now changed from under review to superseded. Now if you remember, we created change notes when we up-issued, and we can look at the properties of this item, and we can look at the change note history of any item in the database, so we can see the history of issues against any item, which can be really useful. So this concludes this overview movie on SolidWorks and DDM.